They're destroying the blood of our country. That's what they're doing. They're destroying our country. They don't like it when I said that, and I never read Mein Kampf.
Fascism is not an epithet, and it's not an insult. It's a specific historical phenomenon with identifiable characteristics. Mussolini perverted a democratic unification movement in violent authoritarianism. Hitler refined that model into industrialized genocide. Here are the 10 defining characteristics of historical fascism. Ultranationalism and blood and soil ideology, violent suppression of opposition, scapegoating of minorities and others, fusion of state and corporate power, control of information and attacks on the press, rewriting of education and history, cult of personality and the strongman, rejection of democratic norms and institutions, glorification of violence and militarism, and nostalgia for a mythical golden age. Let's examine Trump and the MAGA movement against each of these 10 characteristics.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
And the crime, and the gangs, and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
At number 1, ultranationalism and blood and soil ideology. This is perhaps the clearest parallel. Trump's entire political brand is built on the slogan, America First, not as a policy preference for prioritizing American interests, which every nation does, but as an explicit rejection of international cooperation and multilateral institutions. His 2017 inaugural address painted America as a victim of the world. But it goes deeper than economic nationalism. Trump has consistently defined who counts as real Americans in ways that echo Mussolini's approach. Trump's political rise began with the birtherism controversy, the insistence that Barack Obama, despite being born Hawaiian, couldn't really be American because of his father's Kenyan heritage and his middle name. The subtext was clear: real Americans look a certain way and have certain backgrounds. Trump's campaign announcement in 2015 framed Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals. Throughout his presidency, Trump described black majority cities like Baltimore as rat and rodent infested and disgusting. He told 4 congresswomen of color, 3 of whom were born in the United States, to go back to the countries they came from. When white supremacists marched in Charlottesville chanting "Jews will not replace us" in 2017, Trump said there were very fine people on both sides. The replacement rhetoric is particularly telling. Trump has amplified claims that Democrats are intentionally importing immigrants to replace native-born Americans and dilute their political power. This is the exact same narrative Mussolini used about foreign races weakening Italian culture. It's not about immigration policy, it's about defining the nation in ethnic and racial terms. Number 2, violent suppression of opposition. Trump has consistently encouraged violence against opponents and critics, even offered to pay legal fees for supporters who assaulted protesters. And when his supporters chanted "Send her back" about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, he let it continue. Most significantly, on January 6, 2021, after months of falsely claiming that the 2020 election was stolen from him, Trump directed his supporters to march on the Capitol. What followed was a violent assault on the seat of American democracy, with his supporters attacking police officers, breaking into the building, and attempting to stop the constitutional process of certifying electoral votes. Trump watched it unfold on television for hours before telling them to go home, and even then, he told them, "We love you, you're very special." The first thing Trump did in his second term in office was pardon the J6 insurrectionists. The message was clear. If you commit crime for Trump, Trump will pardon you. He has since made ICE into his own paramilitary force. Stephen Miller has publicly assured ICE agents that they can act with impunity. But there's more direct parallel to Mussolini's black shirts that deserves examination. Trump's use of federal forces as a tool of political intimidation. These agents, wearing military-style gear but lacking clear identification, detain protesters in unmarked vehicles and use violent tactics against crowds. Trump has sent federal forces to Democratic-led cities, framing urban areas as war zones that local officials were too weak to control. American citizens have been murdered in the streets. Trump has recently deployed federal troops and agents to cities like Minneapolis, Minnesota, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and Portland, Oregon, ostensibly to assist ICE with immigration enforcement. In September 2025, National Guard troops were sent to Portland, Chicago, and Memphis over the objections of Democratic mayors, a pattern of federal force overriding local Democratic authority. The pattern is clear. Federal force is being used in cities that didn't vote for Trump over the objection of local officials, targeting populations that the president scapegoated throughout his political career. ICE raids under Trump have increasingly resembled paramilitary operations, armed agents conducting mass arrests, separating families, detaining people in conditions that international observers have compared to concentration camps. The detention facilities at the border, where migrant children were separated from parents and held in cages, where people lack basic sanitation and medical care, where deaths have occurred. These are detention camps with conditions that international observers have compared to concentration camps. They're places where people are concentrated based on their ethnicity and nationality, held in dehumanizing conditions as a deliberate deterrent. When Trump describes immigrants as animals who are poisoning the blood of the country and then deploys federal forces to round them up, the historical parallel becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't yet Mussolini's black shirts beating opposition politicians in the streets, but it's the use of federal force as a political weapon, targeting populations that have been scapegoated and dehumanized in defiance of local democratic authority. It's state violence used to terrorize vulnerable populations to send a message about who has power. Number 3, scapegoating of minorities and others. Trump's political strategy has consistently relied on identifying groups to blame for America's problems, presenting them as both inferior and threatening. Immigrants, particularly from Latin America and Muslim-majority countries, have been Trump's primary targets. Beyond calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals, Trump implemented a Muslim ban in his first administration that targeted travelers from several Muslim-majority nations. He described asylum seekers as an invasion and claimed without evidence that they included Middle Eastern terrorists. He separated migrant children from their parents as a deliberate deterrent policy. He described immigrants as poisoning the blood of the country, language that directly echoes Nazi rhetoric about racial purity. Trump has falsely claimed that Haitian immigrants in Ohio were eating people's pets, amplifying racist stereotypes to stoke fear and outrage. He has described predominantly black urban areas as hellscapes and routinely conflates blackness with criminality and disorder. When protests against police brutality erupted after George Floyd's murder in 2020, Trump described protesters as thugs and threatened to deploy the military against them. He staged a photo op in which peaceful protesters were violently cleared from Lafayette Square so he could hold up a Bible in front of a church. The pattern is consistent. Identify a minority group, exaggerate or fabricate threats they pose, used them as an explanation for social problems, and promised to protect the real Americans from them. Number 4, fusion of state and corporate power. Trump did not nationalize industries or create the kind of formal corporatist structure Mussolini built. However, Trump consistently used state power to reward corporate allies and punish corporate critics. Trump twice delivered a massive tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited corporations and the wealthy. He gutted regulations on business across sectors. He appointed corporate executives and lobbyists to lead agencies meant to regulate their industries. For example, the Environmental Protection Agency was led by a former coal lobbyist, and the Labor Department was led by a corporate lawyer who fought worker protections. More telling is how Trump wielded power against corporations that crossed him. He threatened to revoke ABC and NBC's broadcasting licenses over critical coverage. He tried to block the AT&T-Time Warner merger because CNN, owned by Time Warner, covered him negatively. He attacked Amazon because its CEO, Jeff Bezos, owned the Washington Post, which also investigated Trump. Trump also threatened John Deere with tariffs if the company moved manufacturing to Mexico. Trump's economic vision isn't about free markets or worker power. It's about using state authority to reward loyalty and punish disloyalty. The measure of a corporation isn't its innovation or service to consumers, but its relationship to Trump.
We are not going to let the fake news tell us what to do.
Very fake news. You're dishonest people.
The dishonest media.
Your organization
You
is
are
terrible.
attacking the fake media.
CNN's fake news. I don't take
sir,
questions.
if
I don't
you're gonna
take
call us
questions
fake
from
news, you
CNN.
can take
That was just fake news by NBC, which gives a lot of fake news. It's frankly disgusting the way the press is able to write whatever they want to write.
Number 5, control of information and attack on the press. Trump has not shut down newspapers or imprisoned journalists. The American press remains free in the legal sense, but he has waged an unprecedented assault on the legitimacy of independent journalism. He's called the press the enemy of the people, language borrowed directly from Stalin. He has described negative coverage as fake news, training his supporters to reject any information that contradicts him. He has threatened to revoke broadcasting licenses and changed libel laws to make it easier to sue news organizations. He has encouraged violence against journalists. At his rallies, supporters have harassed and threatened reporters in attendance. His attacks extend beyond news coverage to entertainment that mocks him. He's threatened to investigate NBC over Saturday Night Live's satirical portrayal of him, suggesting the network should face consequences for comedy sketches. He similarly attacked late-night hosts Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, suggesting that their shows amount to illegal campaign contributions or should face FCC scrutiny. The message is clear. Not just news coverage, but any public mockery or criticism could bring federal retaliation. This is the mindset of an authoritarian who cannot tolerate criticism in any form. He has lied at a scale unprecedented in American politics. The Washington Post documented more than 30,000 false or misleading claims during Trump's first administration. When fact-checked, he simply doubles down and attacks the fact-checkers. Truth becomes whatever Trump says it is. Bezos' Washington Post discontinued its fact-checker of Trump before the start of the second administration, a sign of the growing corporate complicity to Trump's fascist project. His relationship with Fox News resembles state media more than independent journalism. The network frequently coordinates with his administration, promotes his narratives uncritically, and its hosts advise him on policy and political strategy. Most significantly, he's created an alternative information ecosystem where his supporters trust nothing except sources that affirm what Trump says. Number 6, rewriting of education and history. Trump created the 1776 Commission explicitly to counter teaching about racism in American history. He threatened to cut federal funding to schools that use the 1619 Project, which is a historical examination of slavery's central role in American development. Trump banned diversity training in federal agencies, calling it divisive, anti-American propaganda. His attacks on higher education have been even more direct and threatening. He has repeatedly targeted Harvard and other elite universities, threatening to revoke their tax-exempt status and cut federal funding over how they handle campus protests. He has demanded universities eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, framing them as discrimination against white students. He has threatened funding cuts to universities that allow certain speakers or curriculum he deems anti-American. He has also threatened to ban or severely restrict Chinese students from American universities, framing them as national security threats and potential spies, a sweeping ethnic generalization that would deny educational access based on nationality. Some universities have capitulated to these threats, shutting down DEI offices and restricting campus speech. Others have resisted, but the pressure is constant and escalating. This represents direct federal interference in university autonomy, using the threat of financial ruin to dictate what can be taught, who can speak, who can study, and what values institutions can promote. It's not just about individual curriculum decisions, it's about bringing higher education under ideological control through economic coercion and ethnic exclusion. Republican officials aligned with Trump have pushed laws banning critical race theory in schools, a term they've expanded to mean virtually any teaching about systemic racism or historical injustice. Books about LGBTQ people and racism have been banned from schools across Republican-controlled states. Florida's Don't Say Gay law and its restrictions on teaching about racism are examples of this trend. Trump has promoted a nationalist mythology of American history, one where the nation's founding was purely noble, westward expansion was manifest destiny rather than genocide, and systemic racism is a lie invented by the left. He has described attempts to teach accurate history as a form of child abuse. This isn't yet the total control of education that Mussolini achieved, but the direction is clear. Suppress teaching that complicates nationalist mythology, ban materials that humanize marginalized groups, use federal funding as a weapon to enforce ideological conformity, exclude students based on ethnicity and nationality, and frame education as indoctrination whenever it contradicts Trump's narrative.
You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up. Because he was victorious, you were victorious. And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this. Because of his victory, you will be victorious in all you put your hand to.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
I got a chance to talk to a group of women who support the president, who made their own church, which say, Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president, and directly on the back of their shirts it says, he is the chosen one.
Communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin.
They're destroying the blood of our country. That's what they're doing. They're destroying our country. They don't like it when I said that, and I never read Mein Kampf.
The man that I worship is also a convicted felon.
I think God chose him to get this country right, get us back on our feet, and get us back with the Lord like we need to be.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote. I don't think you're going to have another election in this country if we don't win this election.
Make this one for Jesus, okay? Make this one for Jesus. That's what I tell them. That would be a damn good thing.
She looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country.
on a spiritual note, Jesus was also found guilty, and everybody still loves Jesus, feel me? You know what I mean? So, like, if Trump is found guilty, doesn't mean that we still love him. We already know that's that radical left cheat code stuff.
Even if they put him in the jail cell, we still going for him.
Alec Harvest and all the type of this. Like, this is just gonna be the cherry on top that sets off either the Civil War, World War III, if he actually get arrested. It'll be the cherry on the top.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. I'm calling on Crooked Joe, corrupt Attorney General of New York, deranged Jack Smith,
Bird brain, Nikki becomes president.
They're poisoning the blood of our country.
They're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
They ought to release the J6 hostages. They've suffered enough. Their comments are helping to fuel the rise of a dangerous, militant hard left.
Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government.
If you don't use certain rhetoric, if you don't use certain words that maybe are not very nice words, nothing will happen.
Somebody said to me the other day, "You're the most famous person in the world by far." I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." They said, "Yes, you are." I said, "No." They said, "Who's more famous?" I said, "Jesus Christ."
Number 7, cult of personality and the strongman. This might be the single clearest parallel. Trump's entire political identity is built on the idea that only he can fix America's problems. His supporters wear his name on hats and shirts, fly flags with his image, display golden statues of him at political conferences, and describe him in quasi-religious terms. He demands absolute loyalty from everyone around him. Officials who criticize or refuse to carry out his wishes, no matter how illegal, are labeled traitors and driven out. He cannot tolerate anyone who won't treat him as infallible. He describes himself as above the law. He claimed he could shoot someone on Fifth Ave and not lose supporters. He argued in court that a president could not be prosecuted for any crime committed while in office. He claimed absolute immunity for any action taken as president, and the Supreme Court agreed with him. He has refused to comply with subpoenas, blocked witnesses from testifying, and described all investigations of him as illegitimate witch hunts. At rallies, they chant his name. They believe his claims that any negative information about him is fabricated by enemies. They view criticism of Trump as criticism of themselves. The MAGA movement isn't organized around principles or policies that could outlive Trump. It's organized around him personally. When he lost the 2020 election, millions of his supporters believed his claims that it was impossible for him to lose legitimately. The cognitive dissonance of Trump losing was so unbearable that they convinced themselves democracy itself must have failed.
Trump is still your president!
It's legal for them to count votes in Pennsylvania 2 days after the election on November 3rd?
Yes.
You're wrong. Go. I don't even want to talk to you.
I believe that Donald Trump won the election. I believe that they tried to steal the election.
The ballots that you said you saw are lying around the place or in trash cans or whatever, where are you hearing that from?
I mean, the videos are going viral everywhere. I've seen them on TikTok. I've seen them on Facebook. I've seen them on Fox News. I've seen them on the local news around my area.
I've seen too much pieces of different evidence so far that shows that at this point I would be okay with a revote.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 8, rejection of democratic norms and institutions. This is the most dangerous parallel. Trump has demonstrated consistent contempt for democratic processes whenever they constrain him. He refused to commit to accepting the election results in 2016, which he won. After winning, he falsely claimed he actually won the popular vote and that millions voted illegally. He created a commission to investigate voter fraud, which disbanded without finding evidence because there was none. In 2020, Trump spent months before the election claiming it was rigged. After losing, he insisted he actually won in a landslide. He pressured state officials to find votes. He pressured the Justice Department to declare the election corrupt. He pressured his vice president to illegally reject electoral college votes. When all of that failed, he incited a mob to attack the Capitol and try to stop the certification by force. Trump has been indicted for attempting to overturn election results in Georgia and federally. The indictments detail a conspiracy to submit false electors, pressure state officials, and use violence to remain in power despite losing. He has said he would be dictator only on day one if reelected, a joke that reveals the authoritarian fantasy, which has only become glaring in his second administration. He has threatened to prosecute political opponents, saying he would appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Bidens. He has said that if reelected, he would purge the federal government of anyone not personally loyal to him. This isn't a politician stretching norms or playing hardball. This is someone who views democratic constraints as illegitimate obstacles to his power. Number 9. Glorification of violence and militarism. Trump has consistently expressed admiration for violence and military displays of power. He wanted a birthday military parade like the ones he saw in Russia and China. He wanted generals who were loyal to him personally the way he thought Hitler had Nazi generals loyal to him. He has praised authoritarian leaders that use violence, including Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong-un. He pardoned war criminals convicted of murdering civilians. He loosened rules of engagement and reduced oversight of military operations. He started an illegal war in Iran without congressional approval. He pardoned all J6 rioters, even those who had waged violence against police officers. He has turned ICE into a paramilitary force at his disposal. His rhetoric glorifies strength and dominance. He describes himself as a tough guy and his opponents as weak. He mocks disabled people, prisoners of war, and anyone he perceives as vulnerable. He admires strength for its own sake, regardless of how it's used.
As somebody who doesn't like Trump, myself, the elites were right about Donald Trump, right? I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
He's the best president of my lifetime, and he revealed the corruption in this country like nobody else.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. I think that he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people.
I take it you're not a Trump supporter from what I've read. Am I right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I didn't vote for Trump.
All around, he was a great president. I'm 37 years old. Certainly the best president of my lifetime.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer.
Number 10. Nostalgia for a mythical golden age. Make America Great Again is built entirely on this ethos. The slogan itself demands a return to a past that was greater, though Trump has never been too terribly specific about when exactly America was greater, or for whom exactly. The implication is clear. America was greater before civil rights, before women's liberation, before immigration changed the country's demographics, before political correctness supposedly silenced the real Americans. It was greater when hierarchies were clearer and enforced, when white Christian men faced no challenge to their dominance. The same nostalgia Mussolini packaged and weaponized with his appeals to the glory of ancient Rome. A mythical past when the nation was pure, strong, and respected becomes the justification for purging everything that's changed since. The Republican Party has been moving in this direction for years, questioning Obama's legitimacy, obstructing democratic processes, stoking racial resentment, building alternative media ecosystems, and prioritizing power over principles. Trump accelerated and crystallized these tendencies. Elected Republicans who initially criticized him as unfit have almost entirely capitulated. Those who resist, such as Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and Mitt Romney, are driven from the party. What remains is a movement organized around Trump's personality and willing to embrace authoritarian tactics to maintain power. Republican-controlled states have passed laws restricting voting access, gerrymandering districts to entrench minority rule, and giving legislatures power to override election results. the party has moved from normal conservative politics to something far more insidious.